The following is a Podcast One Minnesota production.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, you betcha, yeah.
If it's made in Minnesota, who's making it and how?
Yeah, you got that right.
It's the makers of Minnesota, focusing on the products and services uniquely made in Minnesota, and conversations with the makers, entrepreneurs, and innovators in Minnesota about how they conceived of their products and how they brought them to market. With Stephanie Hansen, it's the makers of Minnesota.
Hi, this is Stephanie Hansen, and you're listening to Makers of Minnesota, and we are on episode 25, and I am here with my friend Dave Ostland, and Dave is a serial entrepreneur. You may recognize him from some of his other businesses that I'll let him get into, but he has a new business venture that he's working on called Belly Up. You can find it online at Get Belly Up, but it's a dining restaurant concept. And it's very interesting that it's coming at this time because it's kind of in a genre of other like ideas that we're seeing formulate. Dave, welcome to the show.
Stephanie, thanks for having me.
Yeah, welcome to the podcast. There are kind of a new proliferation of offer sampling type concepts that are coming in the restaurant and the beverage industry. Tell me a little bit about Belly Up and sort of how you came to the idea, or had you heard about it from somewhere else?
Well,
I know you're a serial entrepreneur.
yeah. So my mind is always going. It's always coming up with new ideas. Some of them are crazy. Some of them are great. Some of them are stupid. Some of them are, wonderful. And this one falls right into the crazy, wonderful, great one, I think. I have a business partner, Noah Miwa, who we started coming up with a couple other concepts back last March, April, and they were based off extensions of other products that I had. And so we were working.
And your original company is Direct Line Services,
Direct Line
right?
Services.
And tell me, because you're a serial entrepreneur, tell me about the other companies you've done that people listening to the podcast might be aware of.
Well, Direct Line Services was kind of the umbrella company for Twin Cities Food Finds, which was at the time, the number one or number two website in town for restaurant referral services. And that was in the 2000s, early 2010s era. A magazine, Twin Cities Food Finds, that also, was a 110 restaurant menu book.
Yeah,
that
it was huge.
Retail and gave the concierge at hotels. And then we also have, or I still have, the whole network of restaurant menu and map brochures that are in hotels all over the Twin Cities, and that's kind of the main core of all of it. And we've done Reserve Perks, which was a reservation system that also gave people an automatic 30% discount, which was very successful. But as all things successful, there were a lot of negatives to it, so it didn't last very long.
Yep.
And I bought into Dealstork.com, which at the very beginning it actually hit the same month that Groupon hit in the Twin Cities.
Okay.
And it was a daily deal site, and I bought into it because I kind of thought that, being local instead of being from D.C. like Living Social was, or from Chicago like Groupon was, could keep the money local. I understood restaurants more. I could give restaurants a lower price point.
Yep.
And so that worked really well for a couple of years, and just until it just didn't start working for people anymore. And then it kind of turned gross. I felt pretty. And then I sold it, and the people who bought it couldn't manage it, and we clawed it back. But by that time, it's only it's an email database. It's pretty much useless.
Yep.
And so I've gone on to, I've got, Dinelot.com. Did I mention that already?
No, Dinelot?
Dinelot.
Dinelot, okay.
Which is actually, it's kind of a private discount program for travelers in the Twin Cities. So when you go to certain hotels, they will hand you a card to go to the Dinelot.com / then there's private code. And it accesses a bunch of discounts that they can go to different restaurants and redeem.
Okay.
But the general public doesn't really know about Dinelot,
Sure.
even though there is a public form of Dinelot. We don't push that.
Okay.
It's all private. And so,
like I said, you're a serial entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Didn't you have a water company at some point too?
Well, I had started a water company called Avivar, Crystal Artesian Water, and I was going to import water from Tequila, Mexico, from underneath the mantle, the volcano of Tequila. And so working with the guys down there, the actual company that had access to the aquifer
Yeah.
and was the Arete tequila company. And so I'd contracted with them to utilize their bottle shape and kind of their look, but instead of having it be called Santé Organique, which that's what they were calling it, I was going to import it as Avivar.
Okay.
And so that went really well until they decided that Avivar was a better name for their Spanish-sourced water than Santé Organique, which is a French name. And they said, you know what, we'll still give you the water, and you can have, North America. We're going to keep Mexico and South America, and we're going to do Avivar down here. I'm like, but that's kind of my trademark. And so, what am I going to do, sue Mexico?
Right, right.
Or somebody in Mexico? And it's just not, it doesn't work that way. So it really never, even though I ended up getting into 400 stores, a contract for 400 stores, I didn't get into them.
Yeah.
So it's another great idea, import water from Mexico, which was successful, and then all of a sudden wasn't.
Yep.
But this one's going to be.
Well, and I love that this is how your mind works, and you're continually thinking up ideas. I know you've made money on some of ideas, probably lost money on some of these ideas, but that is kind of what a serial entrepreneur is. Do you wish some days that you could just go to work and turn this off? No, never.
I couldn't even in the worst of times when I think of, oh my God, the minute I think of, I have to be at an 8:00 meeting on a Monday morning, or I have to be at a 4:30 meeting on a Friday, or I can't spend 7 weeks a year in Mexico, or over to Hong Kong every year. Nope, not even an option.
Okay, so that's a good perspective for you to have. That it's got good times and it's got bad times, but all in all, they're my times.
And that's it too. When you've got kind of a head like mine works, which I can't really explain. Heck, my wife of a dozen years doesn't even know how my head works yet. My kids kind of do, but they're 7, so they get it.
They're children.
They're children. Some of us never grow up. It's just how you kind of have to forge your own path and figure out what works for you, and that's what I do. And sometimes what works for me doesn't work, and sometimes it does. And
that's the life of an entrepreneur.
Right.
So
As you know.
Yeah, I do. And we talk about some of our failed ideas and we laugh now, but at the time, they all sounded like great ideas. Let's talk about Belly Up. There is a new kind of proliferation of sampling memberships, let's call them.
Yes.
Did you see this somewhere else and you were like, oh, I can do that better? Or how did you conceive of Belly Up?
Well, right. Nobody's idea is 100% completely unique.
No.
And so I was actually in New York last winter and ran across a cocktail membership called Hooch, which I think is like $10 a month, and you can get free drink at 30 restaurants a month. It's something crazy.
Yeah.
And so I was kind of intrigued by them. So I called a couple of the restaurants and said, does this really work for you? And they said, yeah, it's getting off the ground and people are coming in. And,
sure.
And most people, and their website actually said that the average person that comes in and redeems a free drink spends $34. I said, is that true? They said, yeah. Well, I don't know if it's $34 or if it's more or less, but most people do spend more. So that was always in the kind of the back of my mind. And then, I don't, the funny thing is I don't really drink.
Yeah.
I used to a lot, and that's why I don't anymore. But, there's another craft program in town that does a very good job with craft beer, but it's focused really on the hipster market and more on bars.
Okay.
So I thought, there's a way to, since I've always been more focused on restaurants, there's got to be a way to bring in more higher level restaurants with a craft program. Does it include beer, or does it just include cocktails, or does it do both?
Yeah.
Which it ended up doing both. And my business partner, Noah Mia, was all part of this thing too, as we're talking about it and talking through it. And then, Noah says, we should bring in the art community into this thing. I'm like, well, how do you envision that working? And he talked to a couple of his artists, friends, because he's from MCAD and hangs out with a lot of these guys, and they love this concept of getting free craft drinks at a whole bunch of different restaurants in town. They said, well, we should make our own, private run of glasses. I'll paint one for you, and then I'll paint one for you. And so anybody that is part of Belly Up gets custom created glassware by pretty well-known artists in town.
Right.
And so if you get the beer belly, which is 25 beers at 25 different locations, mostly restaurants, a little higher-end bars, a couple of tap rooms, you also get a 4-pack of pint glasses that are each have nothing to do with each other, but as a 4-pack, really are Minnesota food and drink related.
Yeah,
And
they're
those
cool.
get mailed to you. Yeah, they're really cool.
So do you have to bring your glass into the participating bar?
No. All you do, you go in with your Belly Up app that you've downloaded and you've purchased, and you show them that you get a free drink
On my phone.
on your phone. They click redeemed. You get your drink. Hopefully you stick around, have some food, have some more drinks, and then you leave. We mail the glassware to you now.
Okay.
So it's out of the restaurant's hands. And
So you ship me this package,
I ship
and then
you the
I
package.
download my app, and I can go into 25 restaurants and get a free beer, essentially. For how much is my beer membership?
Well, for the 25 beers at 25 restaurants, including the 4 glasses, it's $35 for 2017.
Wow, that's cheap.
Yeah. And then the 25 craft cocktails.
So there's Beer Belly.
There's Beer Belly, and then there's Booze Belly.
Okay.
And Booze Belly is 25 craft cocktails, and the restaurants that are partners in there are just really high-end restaurants, too, that are very food-focused. And they lost my train of thought here. They will give an opportunity, you might have 3 or 4 or 5 different drinks that they'll have available to you that are their signature drinks.
So they can curate and have a signature drink for you. So you go
and
in.
Some are doing that, yep.
Yep.
Some are doing their, we're offering our seasonal drinks.
Yep.
But at least you can go to 25 different places that have 25 drinks that nobody else has because it's really their signature cocktail.
And a craft cocktail's at least $10 usually.
Yeah, we kind of looked at it, and we're looking at $11 to $12 range on average. I mean, sometimes if you're going to go in someplace at happy hour, you might be able to get that cocktail at $8, and sometimes it's a $25 cocktail.
So doing math, it's like you get 25 cocktails at $10 a shot. It's about a $250 value plus the glasses. Yeah.
And what's the value of the glasses? There really is,
Priceless because they have the cool art on them.
That's exactly it.
So this is pretty cool. So did you...
But we also have, so you've got the Beer Belly, the 25 beers, you've got the Booze Belly, but we also have the Best Belly, which before we met with somebody that both you and I know, we called it the Big Belly, but she said, you know what, women don't really want something associated with a big belly, so I'd get rid of that. So it's now the Best Belly, and we've combined both of them. So you can get 25 beers, 25 cocktails, $85. And then you get the 4-pack of not only the tap or the pint glasses, but also 4-pack of highballs. So you get 8 artist-made glasses.
How cool, and what a great gift idea.
It's really, it really is. Especially, I look at it like this. I look at it, if you're in Woodbury and you have to go to Edina, maybe this is going to say, I don't know Edina. Where should we go? Where should we go eat? Well, you know what? In Beer Belly, there's Barrio, and there's also Layla that's over there. Let's go there. Let's get her drink, and let's have an appetizer or lunch.
Yeah. One of the things that I'm trying to do, and I eat out a ton, so I'm maybe not the best person to ask this question or to market this to, but I am trying to force myself to try new places all the time. Like, I really think we have just an amazing food town, and my husband is just the classic, like, let's just go to the same 3 places we always go to. I know I like them. I know what I'm going to order. And he'll be adventurous if it's something like this, or if it's a program, but if I'm just like, hey, let's go to, I don't know, Manello tonight, he'll be like, I don't know. I really don't know. Minneapolis.
Well, next time he does that, you got to just say, okay, then I'm calling Dave.
Well, and
we'll
I do actually eat out a lot with friends, kind of because he's limited in sort of what he wants to try. But he just said to me the other day, he was like, let's just, once a month pick a new place. I was like, who are you? Where did my husband go? Bring him back. His body has been abducted by an alien. But people are creatures of habit, but yet they do like to try new things if they're kind of forced a little bit.
Right.
So what I like about this is it's a gifty idea, but there's something to show for it. So it's not like you're giving someone a coupon book.
Right. No, it's
you can give them the glasses and explain the program, and that's pretty cool.
You go online, you purchase you can purchase a Beer Belly for one person. You can purchase a Booze Belly for another person. You can get a Best Belly for yourself, and they'll get it to them in their email. And then we ship them the glassware when that's done in February. The glassware won't be ready until February, March. But the
Okay.
program will
And I
actually
know you're
start up.
just getting launched. Like, didn't you launch just like a week ago?
Well, we actually the true story behind this one is we actually launched it right around the end of November, but we launched it with this really grandiose idea that people would come in each restaurant and walk out with their branded glassware from that restaurant.
Okay.
And so we were producing, thousands of glasses for Murray's and thousands of glasses for, Heyday or Constantine or Public. And all of a sudden we're making 200,000 glasses in
Right.
storage. And we were willing to do that. But what we really didn't take into consideration and what we found out very quickly is nobody wants 20 glasses, say 25 glasses sitting in the cupboard.
No.
They might want a couple. So people are saying, do we have to take them all? Do we pick and choose which ones do we want? And we realized there was going to be so much waste. And a lot of when we came back to the restaurants and said, we're not doing this glassware. Plus, we already had the artist rendition glassware. There was going to be a special on top of that. But we just said, forget it. Let's just get rid of this glassware. Program's great the way it is. We actually lowered the price from where it was, so that's why it's only $35 and $55 and $85 now. And so we streamlined it.
So let's talk about that. So you're traveling. You have this book, The Fine Print of Self-Publishing. It is, by all accounts, and I'm your friend, but it's fairly stunning to me. It is the Bible of self-publishing. And you had Hillcrest Media. You also established books.com and publish.com, correct?
One of the great things I like about you is every time I see you and you introduce me to people, you always give me domain names that cost millions of dollars that I don't own.
Okay, I thought you did.
No, I did own some good ones. I own published.com, bookprinting.com, bookediting.com, and these were all sites that we use. So
yeah, and I only think of that because I was in the printing and direct mail business, and we had lots of domain names too. It was like having a Super America on every corner.
Yes, and they were, like our bookprinting.com site, half the business from that site came from people typing bookprinting.com in.
Yeah, it's just...
Yeah, it's...
So you learned not only about writing, about self-publishing, about running a company, but what you learned that I think is amazing too is you really learned about the internet and how people consume the internet, what they're searching for, and how to create a business model based on that. Because if you couldn't have gotten people to the data that they were searching for, none of this would have mattered.
Yes. But when I started doing this, I was one of the few. If you went to Amazon and type in books on self-publishing today, there's no end. It's an unlimited amount.
Yep.
When I did it, when my book first came out, there were like 4 books on self-publishing. And no one had ever written a book about the companies that provide self-publishing services. So that part was a total fluke that I happened to write about that.
So fast forward 10 years later, you sold the company for $5 million.
$5 million minus 1.5 million, so 3.5 million.
What was the minus 1.5?
Because I don't know where you got that.
Yeah, I got an erroneous number. You know what? I know that the company, I read that it was worth $5 million.
Oh.
So multiples of earnings and all of that.
Oh, no, the revenue was $5 million.
And you had 30 employees.
I had 30 employees.
And what I think is neat too is you built like a service for these self-publishers. So you legitimately not only said, here's the people that are doing self-publishing, but then you learned the business and you created infrastructure for them to self-publish.
I built my business based on the companies that I reviewed. And that was how May 2006, I was rollerblading at Lake Calhoun.
Okay, that's funny.
And I used to do it a lot until my...
Satin yellow shorts by any chance with a headband on? And
I did used to wear a headband because it was so hot.
So hot.
But I was rollerblading, and my best ideas came when rollerblading. Although I suffered a really debilitating rollerblading injury in 2009, so
Did you get hit by a car, or what happened?
I had bought a brand new pair of rollerblades. Right out of the box. From Hoygaard's, and I know we're not really talking about self-publishing, but this is equally as interesting. So I'm rollerblading, gliding along, and the thing that held the clasp in was defective. And so there's a little part of Lake Calhoun where you kind of go down a little hill, kind of right across from where
I know right
the
where
Calhoun
this
Beach
is.
Club is.
Yep.
So I'm going down that hill, and I'm a pretty big guy, and I'm going pretty fast. And the clasp snaps off. And so the boot flies off my foot.
Yep.
So now, I'm on, it's any second until I crash. And so by luck, I did not, I was pretty, my legs were, first layer of skin, I'd say, was mostly removed.
Hamburger.
From I think from my ankle up to my knee. It was, just totally raw. And I was shaken, and then what's worse, I had to walk back to my car in my socks because I had no
rollerblades.
So I got back to my car, and then a friend of mine while I was blading, had called me. So I called her, and I said, and I was like, "Where are you?" She's like, "I'm at Trader Joe's." I'm like, "Oh, I'll stop there. I'll show you my leg." So I pull behind Trader Joe's, and something happens, and my car keys disappear, and we cannot. I put them on her car. She drives off. They fly off. I have to call her. She has to come and get me, take me to my house, get the other keys. So before I go to urgent care, I go back to Hoygaard's. I walk in, and in the back is where they used to sell the rollerblades. And I just put my leg on their counter and said, "Here's what these rollerblades just did to me." And then they gave me a full refund. It was a defective rollerblade, but I never rollerbladed again.
Really? It was that traumatic?
Yeah, it was just, I tried, but I couldn't.
That's funny.
Couldn't get into the flow. So, okay. So anyway,
All
I have
right,
this idea.
So you're in the flow in self-publishing.
In 2006, I have this idea. I get in I'm rollerblading. I'm like, I have a basic concept of what my company became, but way beyond what I could have imagined. It was a real simplified version. I call my one developer at the time. I'm like, "Do you think we could do this?" And so we start building it in May. We launched the site in October, although all we had was the front. We didn't have a back end system, but we didn't have enough. We only had a few authors. So as people called me about my book, I would be like, "Oh, you want to try us? You can be a guinea pig, and I'm only going to charge X amount." So that was how. So I built my company based on all the stuff I'd learned about all these other companies.
So you would eventually design a book cover, edit
we did
the
everything:
book, help them
editing,
put
design,
it together,
marketing, distribution,
printing.
and some of the things we did that made us really attractive to the company that bought us was we had a back end system that was very complete and really detailed. So you could put a book through, and there were so many moving parts when you publish a book. Like our system, and an author would not see this, but it had 1,800 possible steps. So depending on, if this happens, then this.
Yeah,
then this.
you'd move it through a queue.
So, but that was a pretty complicated thing to build. Then we also built a level of distribution that almost no self-publishing companies do. Most self-publishing companies just do print on demand.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty easy to do. But we did it with an actual distributor, and our systems had a talk, and it was a much more complicated thing, so complicated that one of the reasons I think they bought us was for the ability to do that and not have to build that.
Yeah, because that's when you've built software, custom software, you're usually not the only one who's building it.
No.
But it's kind of who can get to market first, ease of use, and then, yeah, you can always build these things. You can replicate and copy, but how much is it going to cost you when it's easier to just buy someone who's already got it? That, I think, is part of what the magic of selling our company was. Same thing. Was we had really good software built in and customer service pieces built in. And I think that's what people buy. And you had 30 employees when you were selling. Tell me about the day that you sold the business. Like, how did that feel to you?
Well, the entire process was, one, it was super exciting. I would not, I sold to a NASDAQ listed company, and that made it a totally different thing. They sent in 9 people for 2 days
To do due diligence.
and it was like, I mean, they were asking us questions that they knew stuff about our company that we did not know. 'Cause,
Right.
you know, they brought in all these accountants, and then they took our QuickBooks and they like, you know, made 8,000 different scenarios, and they were like, oh, what about this? And then, you know, I mean, it was a lot.
At any point when they were doing all of that, did you think, oh, maybe I shouldn't sell?
No, I knew it was time for me. I woke up one day in March, and I think it might have been a phone call with an author, and after that call, I was just like, you know, why am I, you know, I want to do some other things. And it was that, and I actually tried to, first I approached my distributor, of whom we were the largest customer, and said, I had lunch with him, and, you know, we've known each other for years, and we worked most of our 10 years relationship with no contract. It was just our agreement, you know, it was the only one I had like that. I was like, you know, I think I got to sell. It's time for me. I want to go do something else, so you should buy it. And we went back and forth, and he didn't, at the end, it was just too much. His company was about the size of mine, and it was, you know, he's 15 years older than me, and he just couldn't. It was too stressful for him. So I then went and contacted the company who I sold to. Had offered to buy it a couple years earlier, and it wasn't right, and the deal wasn't right, and the money was really pretty close, but the terms didn't work, and it just didn't work, and I still wanted to do some other things in that business, so I didn't sell. So I called up the only other person, you know, who I thought possibly might be interested, and I just said, hey, you know, it's time. I just decided I'm selling. So if this is, you guys have an interest, now would be a good time.
Mm-hmm.
And to their credit, you know, they came in pretty quickly, and I probably talked to him for the first time sometime in April, and by mid-July it was done. So that's pretty quick.
And you have to now tell your employees.
Well, that part was horrible. That entire process, even just going through it.
Do you think they knew when you were going through your due diligence?
No, because I did the due diligence off-site.
Okay.
Because, you know, I hired people who have my kind of curiosity. So, you know, I mean, people would, if I had a meeting and I had 9 people
know.
in who nobody had ever heard of, and me and my 2 top people in there for 2 days in a row, everybody would think that. And I could not have that, because if the deal didn't work, if the deal didn't go down, I don't want my employees to leave or my company to fall apart.
I totally know how that you feel with that. And that was really surprisingly stressful for me.
It was like,
I felt like a traitor.
Yes.
I felt like I wasn't taking care of my people, and I was lying to them.
Yes. I felt like I was living a double life. Like
Yes.
I had a separate fammy.
Yeah, and you were like a secret agent.
Yes.
And like the phone would ring, and it was like, oh, excuse me, it's my lover or whoever else.
And then I had one of my great employees, and was there for one of my longest, it was there for 8 years, sat right on a wall across, but adjoining my office.
Mm-hmm.
And one day she thought she heard me mention something about the sale of the company while I was in my office on the phone. So then I got a white noise thing from YouTube, and then I would play 102.5 rap music anytime I was on the phone talking to the then seller. So I was like, if you can hear this rap music, it's just because I don't want anyone to hear.
Yeah. So you finally... You closed the sale.
So we
you have
closed,
to tell your employees.
So we closed so we signed the agreement on July 20th. The closing would be August 1st, but they wanted a 10-day period to kind of ramp up, so when we closed, they could just seamlessly take over. So the day that I signed it, we also had a quarterly meeting scheduled, and that was, you know, I was kind of saying to the buyer, like, okay, you know, I can't have a quarterly meeting and then the next day have another meeting.
Yeah.
So. And at these meetings, we would always give away awards, and, you know, they were kind of, we'd talk about what we were doing, and they were all like to pump everyone up. So this one, I had to come in there, and I just told them what happened, and I could see on their faces at first, most people did not believe it, and then I learned later that apparently at other meetings of the same kind, I'd come in there and said, "Oh, I just sold the company," as a as a joke. But then, they saw that I was serious, and
So you sold Hillcrest Media Group, which came with it, Mill City Press, all of the domains that you had.
there's a lot of websites, bookprinting.com, Publish Green, publish.com, and then
And
a
you were
bunch
the
of
largest self-publisher in the country?
No,
You had a machine for self-publishing that was unlike any other.
right. We had
Is that fair to say?
we had a lot of great technology, and we built our own ebook software. And,
Yep.
and
In Minnesota, just so
yes,
funny.
and randomly, and we were like a high-end brand.
Yeah.
They wanted us because we were a high-end brand in this area.
Yep.
And now there's a race to the bottom in self-publishing where it's become a commoditized, just upload your Word document and, whatever.
Yeah.
And that is not, it's terrible for the industry that has happened.
Because you guys really gave a lot of consultation to the authors.
A
Talk
lot.
about that. You would talk to authors literally from a million different kinds of books. Tell me some of your, you had the crazy people, you had the really good books that came your way.
We had some great, there were some great books. I've always described it as like self-publishing is a lot like American Idol. There's the 50% who this is not their thing. But some reason someone has said oh, you can write.
Yeah.
Or you should write a book. Or, while everyone has a story to tell, not everyone has a story to be published.
Right.
So 50% of the books are just not that great. And, they don't want to edit them, or they can't really write, or they don't use any periods, which we've had a couple of those where where the editors are, say,
grammar.
Not a period or comma in the book, which is impossible to edit. And then there's probably about 40% that are like a good bar band. They're enjoyable when you read them, but when it's done, it's sort of, the next week you don't remember.
Right.
And then there's the 10% that got missed along the way by the big publishers. And for us, a lot of those, not a lot, but some of those authors ended up going to bigger publishers, and some, we had a guy who did a book about, I don't want to undersell it,
Mm-hmm.
but it was a book basically about friendship bracelets, how to make friendship bracelets and knots.
Mm-hmm.
And this guy, and he had a pretty big social media following, and he was making $40,000 a month in royalties.
That's amazing.
Yeah. But that is, and then, we did, and this is interesting. I almost put this on Facebook last night. So we did a book of a former KSTP radio host, and now congressional candidate, Jason Lewis. And it was not self-published. It was one of the only books I ever bought the rights to.
Okay.
Which would be surprising given my political
leanings.
But
you're also a man of opportunity.
Well, but I always liked, I would listen to Jason, and some of the stuff I like, even though I didn't want to like it, I did kind of like it.
Yep.
And, if you ever met him, he's a great guy. And I met him and said, you should self-publish this because, you have a radio show and you're syndicated. This is a gold mine. This is the person who should self-publish. He said, well, I don't want to deal with that. Then I offered to buy the rights, and we, we published this book, and we held it back. So this was for the 2010 midterm election. So the book was supposed to come out. The official pub date was in January 2011, but from October 2010 until January, you could only get it through our website and through Jason's website. So he would just get on the first day it came out, he went on the air and said, hey, everyone, I just published a book. And it broke our system because our system could only send out 2,000 emails a day. But we had so many orders, and people just sending out the thank you emails broke our thing. And it was crazy. That book did extremely well. And now, it's become a big issue in Jason's campaign.
Yes, because there's published.
Well, some of that's from his radio stuff, but he made a comment about something in the book that was totally taken out of context, and we don't have to have a political discussion, but it was totally taken out of context. There's a thing in an ad where he says, "Well, if you don't want to own a slave, don't own a slave."
Yeah.
But he was making a point about states' rights, and it was not based on like current
Right.
law or anything. But
you have the book.
well, not anymore.
And you sold 6,000 different, you made or self-published 6,000 different books. Is
I
that
think
correct?
it was, it's probably be somewhere between 8 and 11,000 of books that came through in some way.
Yeah.
So like we might have just been the printer for a book or just the distributor, but of books we actually published from beginning to end, it was probably about 6,000.
So if someone is listening and they are thinking they're going to publish a book or be a self-publisher of a book, what would your like number one piece of advice, or what would the steps be that you would be like, here's the gut check, people?
Well, the first thing I would honestly do, and I have no financial benefit in this anymore, is I would go to Amazon and buy my book before it's out of print.
Fine print of self-publishing.
6th edition. Because
Yep.
I go through there and tell you, and not only do I compare the companies, but I go through and tell the things that I think are important. Like, if you're not going to have the book professionally edited, there is no point. You might just write a blog. There's no point in putting out a book that's not professionally edited or professionally designed.
Yep.
And if you're, I've often used if you have an 11th grade son who just learned how to do design at high school, that is not the person who should make your book cover.
No.
But there is so much of that.
Yeah, because people are cheap. They trip over nickels.
Or they don't, one time we had this guy came in and he had published a book with some other self-publishing company. And the cover looked exactly like Bridges of Madison County. So he came in and, he was very disappointed in the results. And I looked at so I didn't read the back of the book. I just assumed by looking at that, this is a small town love story. But it turned out that the book was about like a series of horrific rapes and it was a novel, but it was like a horror novel.
Oh.
But he told whoever published the book, this is my favorite little country bridge. So I want to make that the book cover. So those are things, and I always told authors that I would use the thing, like if I went to a doctor and the doctor said, oh, you need open heart surgery, I wouldn't go home and be like, oh, I'm going to look up on a YouTube video how to do this to myself. And that is something that people who self-publish don't get how important that is. And there's so many moving parts to put out a book correctly that to do it with people who don't know what they're doing or aren't going to just do whatever you want. Obviously, at some point, you have to do what the author wants if you're being paid a fee to do it. But I always felt it was our obligation to give them the best advice.
We talked once, and I was like, oh, maybe I'll write a book about cancer. And you were just so funny. You were like, here's how many thousands of books about cancers are in people's garage.
Well, that's not to say that someone shouldn't do it, because that can be very cathartic, and there's other reasons.
Sure.
But people, and we all think that what has happened to us in our lives is
unique.
People want to read about, and people don't really.
Yeah.
People, you have to really understand that part of it when you're doing it. And a lot of authors don't, and they never can. I was lucky in that when I published the fine print, I just went into it. I mean, I guess this is maybe more of a business philosophy. This is not a good business philosophy, but I just assume, and I had so many until my other company, my business filing company that I sold, and this company, every other business thing I did was a failure. My clothing company was a failure. I did another clothing company. It was a failure. Which
is funny, because I was talking to Dean Phillips last week from the Phillips family, and, you hear about the Talenti gelato, and you hear about Phillips and Belvedere, and for all of the ones you heard about that they made a lot of money on, there were ideas that they didn't. Every entrepreneur has their failed ideas.
Yes, and I think that's probably what makes a good entrepreneur, because a lot of those lessons I never forgot, and especially one that I always applied to my own book, and that was I used to own a company with these two guys from the WWF, and we sold their merchandise. And they were one of the few wrestlers that own their own trademarks. So we were able to sell their stuff all over the world. And this was like a pre-internet, so we had a catalog. And we bought ads at the ends of wrestling things. And, it did well. But there was we went to this wrestling convention once in Philadelphia. So I just assumed, like, I'm bringing these two famous guys. Let's make unbelievable amounts of shirts, hats, foam shoulder pad. I mean, everything.
Yep.
And we brought. I mean, I don't know how many thousands of dollars it cost us to ship this stuff. But then this thing, it had like 100 people attended it. It was in like a high school gym. Like they couldn't get anyone. And that lesson of having all that inventory and having to ship it back was one that I never forgot. So when I started publishing my own book, I would only print 50 copies at a time.
Right.
For the fear of that happening. And it took maybe till the fourth edition to where I was printing, a couple thousand at a time.
Because you didn't want to end up with them all in your garage. No. All right. So you're a young man. You're in your young 40s.
Well, I mean, not according to my 14-year-old niece and nephew.
But you are, I think you're a millionaire. So that's something that people strive for and think that's like, when I'm a millionaire, it kind of feels like a dream until it happens to you. Does it change you?
Yeah. I mean, yes.
Because in what ways?
Well, when I sold my other business, I had done well.
Yep.
But selling this business, I had done like, you don't ever have to work again well.
Yes.
And that's a big difference.
Yep. And will you not work again?
I mean, I'm for sure going to work.
I know. That's the funny thing about it. Most people say the same thing you have said.
But I can do whatever I want to do at the level that I want to do it. And
can I say, though, I think it's really challenging for entrepreneurs like yourself I can do whatever I want to do. What really is that? How do you know? How do you get there? How do you smell it or feel it or recognize it when it's there?
I mean, I know what I really love doing, and that was one reason I sold this company.
So what do you want to do next?
I am a really avid domain name buyer and seller and investor, and it's an industry with a huge opportunity and huge growth.
And huge risk.
I mean, yes, huge risk if you don't know what you're doing, yes, there can be huge risk.
So explain, this is where you buy domain names that you think are going to have value. Like I read how much somebody bought Trump Pence.
That was it. So that was a big thing in the domain. I mean, now I had a couple Trump names also. No, I did sell Trumpty Dumpty for $600. A little different than Trump Pence, which sold for $16,000 at an auction. But you got, again, Trump Pence, it was someone who just bought it a few months ago.
Yep.
Or, 3-4 months ago. And within 3 or 4 months, that name, if Trump loses that election, that name will be dropped. The guy won't even pay the $8 renewal fee. So that person put it at auction, and it would not have gotten that high. And again, the auctions are blind, so nobody knew that the campaign was bidding on it at this auction. But that's why it went for $16,000.
So if you're are you like, okay, Trump, who could be potential running mates, and you try to figure out what those domain names would look like?
I mean, I did that once, and I had McCainPalenti.com. Mm-hmm. So in 2008, I was like, Palenti was like the number 2 after Palin to get that job. So I was like, this is my...
And he really probably would have been a good pick for him.
In retrospect, I think McCain maybe could have won that election.
I think so too, actually.
But anyway, I dropped that name the next year because it was worthless.
Relevance, yeah.
So I'm not a big buyer of political names.
What's your category that you like, that you feel like you've got the sweet spot? You're, I know, a pop culture fan.
A little pop culture, not tons, but I have bought...
Teresa and Joe, back from jail.
I have bought some little catchphrases. I mean, I do own HumptyHump.com.
Okay. Do the Humpty Hump.
I do own that. I'm just trying to think. I own SnoopBlog.com. I'm a
Okay.
big Snoop Dogg fan.
Are you excited about his show with Martha Stewart?
Oh,
They're going to have a
yes.
cooking show together
Yes.
on VH1.
Yes. So I buy a lot of brandable names that, you might see two keywords that you could put together that make a brand. Like for instance, I just sold bookengine.com
Okay.
a couple of weeks ago for a pretty decent amount of money.
Yep. Someone's going to do a self-publishing thing.
Sometimes I go and check to see like if they ever,
Yeah.
and they pay a lot if they ever use it. But, sometimes, you're in a world with billions of people and it takes one person, again, a lot of these things can be impulse buys. I always try to set mine at the unless it's a really premium name, like I own fiction.com.
Yep.
So that is waiting for some brand or some publisher or somebody to come. That's.
Do you buy so there's .coms and then there's .orgs and now there's .nets and
There's
.this and .that.
Yeah.
Do you buy all what are those things called, extensions?
Yeah, GTLDs. I am not there's one extension that's good. It's called .io. That's good only in that a lot of tech startups and app companies use the .io
Okay.
instead because they can't get the .com. So
Mm-hmm.
I've done pretty well selling those kind of, where it's a one-word .io.
Yep.
I'm just trying to think of one I just sold. That would be a good example.
So it's almost like you're a commodities trader, kind of.
Yes, it's a lot. It's like the stock market, gambling, and absolute creativity. All
It's perfect for you.
yeah, I love it, and I love when I go to a domain conference. I feel the only place I feel more comfortable is when I go see Bill Maher on Saturday night.
All right. Well, Mark Levine, congratulations
Thanks,
on the
Stephanie
sale of
Hansen.
the company. And I have a feeling you've got a lot of cool things in your future. I know you and I have talked about doing some other just fun podcasts and some fun things.
I'm so ready for that.
I am too. It's been really fun doing podcasting and just getting people's stories. So, someone you're gonna find your bliss. You're gonna find what it is that you want to do. Do you think you will start another company where you'll have employees and that whole route again?
I find it hard to believe.
Yeah.
I mean, I would certainly invest in one, but I don't want to ever run one again. That can really take a lot out of you and make it hard to sleep at night.
Yeah, and that ship
And
has
it's a lot
sailed.
of stress. So
Yeah.
that ship has sailed, but I would start one that had, 2 to 5 employees.
That's how it starts.
No, I know. It's a sickness.
All right. Thank you for being here today.
My pleasure.
It is the fine print of self-publishing. Make sure you get that 6th edition before it goes out of print. And it's Mark Levine, Hillcrest Media Group. How do you if anyone wants to reach you with any ideas, how do you want them to reach you?
Oh, LinkedIn.
Okay. Mark Levine, LinkedIn. Okay. We'll be back.